Hey guys, welcome to another commentary done by Diggity. Upper left hand corner we have WorsT starting as the blue Protoss, bottom left hand corner we have Tom starting as the red Protoss. This is going to be on Deja Vu. And WorsT showing a really strong playing in game one. The Corsair play ended up working out for him, got a good amount of damage done, stymieing Tom's macro. And on top of that, the engagements were just really patient after that. And just see if we can see the Ursidon. That's a really good, he had a really good angle on that Ursidon. Almost, you know, Ursidons kind of remind me almost of Diablo 2 enemies. Like it feels like it would be a fuzzy Diablo 2 thing that would start attacking you. Along with the Ragnasaur. I guess these are both officially cryptids. You know what would be hilarious is it's just like some random probe or drone or whatever comes across these on the map and like, no, I swear they exist. And then someone's like going to look, okay, let's go see where they were. Well, did they just vanish into thin air? It's like, yes, that's exactly what actually happened to them. They vanished into thin air. But who's going to believe you? Anyway, WorsT going ahead and going for a gateway opener this time rather than the forge openers, is scouting the correct direction to get a first scout, Tom. Well, never mind. Changed direction. For initially, I thought he was going to go bottom left. So both players scouting away from their opponent's base. Initially, it looks like are we going to see a 12 hatch? We are going to see a 12 hatch out from Tom, but Tom hiding the drone right this second, just in case a probe was making its way around. And he's going to be able to pull that off. So this is the first 12 hatch I've seen out of Zerg. Has that been all tournament? I think all tournament, actually, which is shocking. Actually shocking. Drone Scout also making its way out on the map. We'll end up... We'll see how he deals with the initial zealot. Oftentimes this does give opportunities for initial zealots to maybe mix something up at the natural expansion, maybe at least injure some drones, potentially. And we'll see how many Zerglings he also produces initially. Going for cross map scout. Overlord is checking out bottom right, finding absolutely nothing. So now he knows his opponent is top left. So sending an additional Overlord. Unfortunately, that's going to give him the least amount of time to react to this initial zealot, which means the zealot is going to be able to potentially maim some drones overall. And WorsT, guessing correctly based on Overlord timing, he's also going to have a probe alongside. So here comes that zealot. So spawning pool going to finish. Probe and zealot going to be able to make their way. They're going to see that hatchery finishing, so they know it's a 12 hatch. And now you have that timing, which waiting on the initial Zerglings to be constructed. We got at least 4. With probe, and you can, yeah, this is where the drones have to huddle and do their work. So getting some initial damage done. There's the initial maiming. Good drill. One of them goes down. Nice focus fire there on the Zealot. Great drone drill, though. As far as a follow-up, does he get 2? He does not get 2, and I think this should be it. The Zerglings grouping up, although 2 of them lazy on the job. Second Zealot already in here. That has been dispatched. We got 4 Zerglings. As long as the weak Zergling does not get focused, that should be it. 2 additional Zerglings being produced. Another Zealot making its way across the map. But having the natural expansion up a little bit earlier, theoretically can, after the initial pushback of these Zealots, although are they going to re-engage? Looks like they're cycling back around to re-engage. They got to be careful. You got to be careful at this stage, though, because this can turn around in a split second. As far as, and it looks like some nice surrounding, good engagement there by Tom. Getting in the gap, getting a good amount of damage done. We have 1 weakened Zealot. They're in good retreat. Some nice stutter stepping from WorsT, but now that Zealot is surrounded, and now all of a sudden, we've got 7 Zerglings remaining, and a cannon about halfway finished with 2 Zealots out on the front. Natural expansion is up, but Tom has already grabbed here the 6 o'clock, and he is free with this degree. It looks like he's going to spread the Zerglings out to see what he can find as far as vision-wise. That probe making its way out. On top of this also puts WorsT in the dark. He doesn't know what the follow-up's going to be. We know it's a tech delay. He doesn't know that this isn't going to be a Hydralisk bus follow-up, which means he's potentially going to need to save some resources and get the... Although, that probe all the way around, I thought the Zergling was going to spot it and respond. We still have 4 Zerglings hanging out here. Really, they want to get into the main. Look at that extractor confirm whether there was a layer time, and it looks like Tom just Tom is able to stop that right there. A little bit slow on the drone catch up here though. So, and because of maybe a lot of drone and also a tech layer before droning up in the midst of that. So the layer will come up pretty rapidly. Stargate, by the way, about a third the way finished, and this is pretty good timing from WorsT again. In the midst of this, Tom a little bit drone light for where he would want it to be, particularly off a 12 hatch here to start. And honestly, I don't feel like he took significant loss. He lost a drone. And a drone for, what was that, 3 zealots and a probe? Pretty good trade initial, although with Zerg it's a little bit of a different calculation because you're trying to... Because it's more a larva consideration than anything. Zealots, by the way, marching their way out to engage against the Zerglings that were not bunched up. Looking some nice micro there from WorsT, and the injured Zealots getting microed last, so that's going to leave just 3 Zerglings out in the field, so complete army reset both directions, by the way. But I think WorsT also trying to provoke a little bit of overreaction, potentially, on his opponent's part. Now the drones being built, Zealot leg speed on the way, and the first Corsair going to at least be able to get this Overlord, but first is going to want to glean that scouting information because unlike previous games, WorsT has very little information as far as what the situation on the field is. But so going to come across, he's going to see pretty decent drone saturation there. He's going to see that 4th hatchery just plopping down. He's going to see that Spire is not yet finished, which should trigger him to go ahead and cycle around to go ahead and get an Overlord kill if he can find it. These will be the prime targets. But is he going to just return to... Well, is he going to go for it? Okay, yeah, they're going for it. Overlord scattering. 2nd Corsair also making its way to the forward field. And the Scourge, I'm looking for the Scourge in production. The Spire's finished. Hydralisk Den getting dropped, as well as a Sim City. So 1 Overlord down. 2 Scourge have been queued up. And it looks like WorsT isn't going to take the risk. We know he actually could have gotten another Overlord potentially, but not going to risk it. I'm gonna go ahead and back off. Nice Sim City here from Tom along the natural expansion, and Scourge in flight as well. So as things settle, WorsT in a pretty healthy worker situation is upgrading +1 weapons, interestingly enough, which surprises me a bit. He's also pinning that probe behind, so is potentially thinking of, we'll see if we have the Dark Templar follow up again. Scourge wandering up, seeing the lack of additional gateways, has to presume that it's going to be Corsair DT or some sort of push to tech rather than a heavier gateway flood, although WorsT dropping the gateways as soon as those Scourge have wandered their way out. I don't think that's going to be a false flag here for Tom. 4 Corsair making their way up, 4 Zealots on the front, and not a lot else to defend. Some Hydralisks just spawning, the Creep Colony not yet in place, but the Sim City is such where this actually might end up being better than usual, so the drones will be distracted a bit. But as of yet, no drones have died. The Corsair coming up somewhat late. The midfield Overlord was wiped out, another Overlord wiped out, and Tom... It's unfortunate for WorsT that series of events didn't transpire a little bit differently, because that if it was a little bit more combination tech, that might have been a lot more damage, because I think some of those Corsair, or I should say a couple of those Hydralisks were being built on the supply that was there rendered. This hatchery being spotted, 4 Zealots wandering their way around, just an absolute skeleton crew right now for Tom. He's got to wait for additional Overlords, but and WorsT is taking a significant supply lead. All sorts of gateways up, dropping the robotics in the midst of this. He's put himself in a really, really good situation here in the mid game at what looked like, honestly, was going to be a bad assault, where the Zealots are going to be handled, turned into a great assault, because the Corsairs, even though they were, are they 5? Okay, it looks like they were 5 in number, able to wipe out a lot of those Overlords. And whenever there's that supply cap, it just slows everything. Especially supply caps, I think, hurt for Zerg more than... for other races, it's like you can dump a lot of those resources other places. For Zerg, you're missing opportunity to spend larvae, which are a finite resource, right? So I almost want to say that it hurts more than the other races comparatively, because you don't get that larva in its spawn cycle back, if that makes any sense. Although the more I think about that, the less I'm comfortable making that statement. So maybe don't put that one in the bank to be like, well, Diggity says this, and therefore it is the God's honest truth. Anyway, DT out on the map, by the way. Hydralisks in small numbers getting surrounded and overwhelmed by the Zealots with +1 weapons. No +1 weapons on the Hydralisks as of yet. Overlord is there alongside, but the Dark Templar is no longer in position, and we do have, how many Overlords do we have here? 3 Overlords, a handful of Hydralisks. WorsT drawing back after getting some of the damage he wanted to on the Hydralisks out in the field and repositioning the Corsair. He does have +1 weapons. Or never mind, he canceled the +1 weapons on the Corsair. Very late in the cycle of it. But did cancel it, and it looks like the Dark Templar are going to draw back. Is there... Yeah, East doesn't have a lot of territory to make his way across, but at the very least that provides a degree of map control, and he can at least spot the Hydralisk numbers as they're making their way across. Zergling running back and forth to the upper right-hand corner might catch this probe that is lurking out there to go ahead and grab a third base. Tom lost another Overlord. It looks like in the bottom right, I missed that. Didn't realize there was an Overlord at that location. And Tom has overproduced Overlords here to go ahead and fill in that supply. A bunch of these units making their way forward as Lurker aspect is just completing. And this is before, is he going to be able to dodge? Yeah, able to dodge there before the High Templar are in position to exact a lot of that Side Storm. Unfortunately, ooh, nice follow-up there from WorsT though. Gets another Overlord with Side Storm. WorsT just has a much, much larger army. And should the one win for Tom here, oh, never mind, one win there, at least picking up High Templar, but going to be a secondary win here because there was no escort top right. That probe is going to get wiped out, and that will delay what would have been a pretty fast third for WorsT. He really wanted to be grabbing that additional base, have that Nexus underway as he was engaging this attack, but this attack potentially could be overwhelming. Looking at the supply differentials right here. Some Lurkers making the way to the low ground, WorsT cycling back around to engage on the bridge point, which will allow a lot of these units to pile up, which potentially could turn into some prime Psystorm location, what that can also turn into as a death trap, depending on how Tom macros and positions, however. So Hydralisks engaging from the north, units looking for the counterattack and not seeing the counterattack from the south. The High Templar kind of holding that ramp side, so WorsT being very patient, not wanting to get pinned in, but looking for good trades, is going to be able to Psystorm some of the Lurkers as they're on approach. And wow, that last one a whiff, but the rest of them some pretty nice Psystorms. Ooh, the Corsair just sitting there getting wiped out though. Counterattack from Tom into the top right, so going to be able to, if he can gather those Hydralisks, might be able to focus fire that Nexus down. It looks like he's a bit distracted by this attack and these troops to the south, however. A lot of Overlords, but Overlords aren't threatening to the northern location. But WorsT, ooh, good Side Storm right there. I was about to say WorsT has managed to bleed off a lot of supply in the midst of all this, but as I said, that there was that last huge Side Storm cleaning up a lot else, and we got some Overlords. Are all the Corsair wiped out? Looking for the Corsair to cycle back around. Looks like a lot of them have lost their numbers, but they're going to make their way forward, and yeah, this is their favorite meal. Scattered Overlords in the forward position, and more Overlords. Yeah, man, it's just been an Overlord fiasco for Tom in both of these matches. Observer does get picked off, and that, regardless of anything else, will send WorsT home. He potentially is going to lose these High Templar if the Hydralisks hurry themselves up. So one down. Ooh, good Psystorm. Looks like the Hydralisk able to dodge out of the bulk of it, though. The last one is within, he's knocking on death's door right this second. But base is up for WorsT. He's going to be able to transfer workers well before there was resource deficiency at his main. Tom is still on 3 bases. 3 base versus 3 base usually favors Protoss. WorsT still has a sizable economic lead, although High Templar right this second getting picked off in open field despite the +2 weapons, +2 armor, by the way, complete for the Hydralisks as well. Hydralisks running up at picking fights where there's not really any soft targets to dedicate on. Single Zergling able to wipe out that Zealot bottom right because of previous damage that it had incurred. That, or it was just running around taking damage from the Zergling. I don't think that was the case though. But this turns into the situation where, yeah, I think a lot of Zerg neglect, which is, this is a great situation if you have an overwhelming amount of Hydralisks and you've pinned your Protoss opponent to just the 2 bases and you're exchanging Hydralisks for a minimal amount of Hydralisks to take out the Psystorm on the field. If you don't grab the fourth, if you don't make your way towards Hive Tech though, once that third is up, and particularly as the upgrades start climbing, your Protoss opponent starts overtaking you. And right now we got 8 gates, or actually technically 9 gates rolling. We've got, I think, double forge. We got, yeah, double forge cycling. And the upgrades continuing to build, and WorsT isn't just, well, I was gonna say he's not just throwing units away. A couple units making their way up, loses an observer on the corner, still has an additional observer, but able to, get some good Psystorm planted on his opponent, still maintains a 20 supply lead. Still, it's gonna lose several High Templar though. Nevertheless, the longer this progresses and the longer these bases are, this feels a little bit late as far as a pickup for Tom. Let's see if he goes ahead and grabs the natural. I would like him to tech the hive on, yeah, he's gonna grab the Queen's Nest. I think he recognized that he's a little bit slow on transition and this base is in fact up. He's got the Scourge and a single Zergling guarding that top right hand corner, and also is maybe, he's, I think, expecting a Psystorm drop. Once again, we do have some Zealots and some... Here I was about to say, I don't know that WorsT is going to bother with that, given the positions, but as I say that, I find the shuttle. And unfortunately, like game 1, the shuttle going into the absolute least favorable... Well, never mind, going to avoid the Scourge. Zealots and a High Templar planted. Getting... the second Psystorm. The initial Psystorm getting a few, but the second Psystorm obliterating those drone lines, and Tom is sub 40 drones here in the late game, which is not the situation he wants to be in. He's gonna have to hope that he's not getting continually attacked by WorsT as things progress. Dragoon able to clean up that Zergling top right to potentially open up this space. But in a moment here, you're gonna have +2 weapons and +3 armor completed for WorsT, plus the 30 supply differential, and you're not gonna have Defilers. So Hive Tech just started, you're not going to have Defilers or anything else on the field. And WorsT very likely is going to grab this upper right hand base in a moment. And this is before a lot of these bottom right hand bases have gotten running, and it looks like WorsT is already dashing bottom right to potentially wipe out these bases before they ever become productive. And there's not a lot of counter, well, I guess we have a lot of troops. I was about to say there's not a lot of counterattack possibility, but there in fact is. You're a Dark Templar out there somewhere, getting a couple hits. I think I must have died pretty rapidly. Scourge in the midst of this pressing forward. WorsT having trouble keeping his army cohesive here. Corsair to the forward front taking some damage. It looks like some Zealots getting cut off from the main attack force. And Tom starting to surround a little. He's got army to the north and army to the west, but the army to the west looks like it's getting obliterated, so rather than coming in as one cohesive surrounding blob, it is getting picked off summarily as it's coming in piecemeal on multiple fronts. And the probe's also transferring, by the way, to the top right, which if nothing else should cue WorsT to go ahead and grab that top right hand base. And so Tom, he's got a few Hydralisks, but he doesn't have a Nidus Canal here bottom right. This is a sizable enough army for WorsT to crash down bottom right. I don't know that he's going to bother to do so. It looks like Tom is more concerned about denying the top right expansion, and this is going to cost him. I think that's going to end up costing him what's going to soon be his main production line in the bottom right. Yeah, and this is just as drones were just starting to make these bases come to fruition. Unfortunately, some Hydralisks being distracted from the rear. We don't have any additional, well, do we have additional Psystorm? No, I don't think we have any additional Psystorm in the midst of this, so it's going to be a dead natural. WorsT needs to hurry up and get to the high ground with all these Dragoons if he's going to dedicate the rest of the attack force. It looks like right now he's holding them on the low ground. Again, Tom coming in a bit piecemeal with the attacks. The Zerglings engaging the Zealots, so WorsT getting a pretty favorable exchanges, although some Zealots, as far as reinforcements, are just suiciding across the lines. But WorsT a little bit slow to go ahead and grab his fourth base. So wiped out bottom right, was a little bit slow, didn't grab top right or any of the holdings there. Tom able to sit with the troops on that location, but at the same time, WorsT has gotten a lot of really good trades. That being said, I don't think that Tom is out of this by any means. He's well behind on upgrades right this second. He's only got +1 armor and +2 weapons on his Hydralisks right this second, but Hive Tech is up. He's got adrenal upgrades coming. He doesn't have a Defiler Mound as of yet. The Defiler Mound would help immensely. It looks like the Defiler Mound about halfway finished. But he does have a worker lead, and he's got bottom right in his hands. Eggs getting Psystormed, and it looks like they're going to have to be canceled. The problem is I don't think he's going to have the time to be able to make it there. He's got the pieces underway. He's got an economy to make it work. But WorsT, I don't think he's going to give him breathing room. Yeah, it's just going to start crashing into that natural expansion before Tom is ready. Zerglings streaming their way across, being met by Archons. Also, the Observer able to see them coming. And Tom gonna GG, recognizing that WorsT was going to be able to crash into this. And first of all, deny any bases, starve them out, and just have an overwhelming upgrade and army advantage. So that will be game. WorsT advances 2-1. Tom will be in the 1-2 bracket in the 4th round. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for listening.